Hi everyone and welcome to my channel Red and Blue, the YouTube channel dedicated to all things PSG in English. Well, we're less than 48 hours away from the big game, so it's definitely time to our game preview and give you my thoughts going into the matchup against Inter on Saturday. So first, I'll start with how both teams got to the final. If you remember, PSG definitely had a slow start to their Champions League season this year. The first few games in the group stage were a bit difficult and challenging for PSG. We had a win against Girona, a loss against Atletico Madrid, a draw against PSV. So definitely a bit of a mixed bag in terms of results. And then we really hit a turning point, which was against Man City in the park. If you remember, we came back from being 2-0 down and basically almost knocked off of the Champions League to win that game 4-2 and really turn around our fortunes. From there, we won our last games in the group phase, got through to with Brest in the knockoff round, and then like that magnificent double confrontation against Liverpool, where if you remember, we lost a game that we thoroughly dominated in the Parc des Princes 1-0, and then went away to Anfield and got the same win 1-0 and got through through a penalty knockoff. And then after that, we beat Aston Villa a bit more comfortably, and then Arsenal in the semi. Inter had a more serene group phase, I would say. They finished fourth. They drew a game against Man City in Manchester and then lost in Leverkusen. They also had, like I was noting, a few short 1-0 wins against Arsenal, against Leipzig, against Praha, and against Young Boys. I think like that really shows the team's defensive prowess, but also like says something about the strength that they take into these games. Then they got through Feyenoord, Bayern Munich, you might remember that one with a win in Munich, and then Barcelona in that like crazy semifinals games. And now, like, let's look at what will be likely the starting 11s for this game. So on Inter side, they've got Sommer in goal, Bisek, I think Bisek or Pavard, with Acerbi and Bastoni in central defense. Dumfries on the right, Barella, Çalhanoğlu, and Mkhitaryan in the midfield, Di Marco on the left, and then Lautaro and Thuram up front. On PSG side, I think Donnarumma, Hakimi, Marquinhos, Pacho and Nuno Mendes in defense, Vitinha just ahead, Ruiz and Joao Neves, and then Kvara, Dembele, and I think Barcola ahead of Doué for the last spot in attack. So going into this game, let's also look at what are the top strengths and weaknesses for PSG. For Inter, like I would strongly suggest you go back and watch the videos that we did with my friend Anto yesterday, where he taught us and told us about Inter and what they've got going on and going into this game. For PSG, I think for me, like the top strengths that we've got is really like there's really a few different points. The first one for me is the physicality. There's been a lot made around like how this PSG team is the youngest team in the competition, and the Inter team is the oldest one. There's definitely a big gap in age, but also if you look at the kilometers run by both teams going into the games. Obviously, Inter is doing well there, but PSG has been simply outstanding. With players like Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, Joao Neves covering so much ground and really like having a duplicative impact because of that. I think that's something that we really take into the game, and I think like, you know, Inter also has like some players who are coming back from injury. Pavard is still a maybe for this game. Lautaro will definitely be playing, but he hasn't been on the field since the Barcelona game, which was a month ago. So what kind of fitness is he going to be in, like going into this? For me, like I would say as well, like I can see a scenario where, like, if it's a close game and a tactical game and it goes on for a while with a tie, I think every passing minute gets us closer because I think, like, we do have more in reserve if we have to go into, you know, overtime or even a penalty shootout. And so that should serve us well in case of a close game when Inter would definitely, like, you know, really want to keep it to 90 minutes in my head. Second strong point for PSG, I think like the creativity up front is just phenomenal. Inter definitely has some, you know, very talented players and very creative players. But if you look at our front three and the impact of a Kvara, of a Dembele, of a Barcola, even a Doué if he comes in, or like start the game, um, it's just a standout. And I think like um, PSG under Luis Enrique, we do have a lot of strong game principles that we bring into the game. You know, being very upfront about counter pressing, trying to control the ball and dominate possession. Wingers that can like project very high and go back into the half space, into the midfield, and even into the attack. Dembele as number 9 that can drop deep and kind of organize the game, drawing some defenders with him. I'm expecting those things to be there, and I think like it gives us a lot more variety in our game than what Inter can do. Obviously, they're also a strong team and they can also adapt a lot. But I do think like we might have more to surprise them with and be able to challenge them. And then, like, the last one I wanted to underline is really about our speed up front. I think if I look at the back three from Inter, Bisek or Pavard, but also like Acerbi and Bastoni, very experienced defenders, very crafty players. They'll definitely be good at like being in the right place at the right time and making a tactical foul where necessary and so on. But if we can project behind that line or into the half space behind the fullbacks as well, I think there should be opportunities for us there. And I think that's why like I'm giving Barcola another hands off Doué, because I do think that he could be that player that projects, them allowing Dembele to drop back into midfield and try to build a dominance for us there. When Kvara is more of a flair player, a dribble player who can like play into small space, and if we do get control of the ball, really like challenge the Inter defense with some runs. We'll see, but that's really like how I see this game going into it. Looking at PSG weaknesses there, because obviously, like it is a final, and we do have some points which could be dangerous for us that we should like be mindful of. The first one that I've got, and it breaks my heart a little bit, is Marquinhos. Don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of discussions among PSG fans about Marquinhos and whether he's got like the right temperament to be captain, whether he's the right guy to be in central defense now for PSG. I think going into next year, like that conversation is going to happen again, and it's happening already. I think for me, like I would say, like Marquinhos is a tremendous defender, no questions about that. I think he's one of the best in his position, but I also recognize that sometimes he struggles a little bit, especially mentally. He's got this tendency to drop back quite deep when the opposing team is really like turning on the pressure. And I think like the matchup that he's got ahead of him, whether it's against Lautaro or against Thuram, it's going to be a very, very hard one for him. And so he's going to need to be at the top of his game. He's going to need to be like very confident going into him. He's a very experienced leader now, and he's our captain. So we do have expectations for him. And ultimately, like I really hope that he turns it on for this game. But he's definitely going to be one to watch as well. Second one, and that tags into the Marquinhos thing, is really about our mental resilience and also our lack of experience. A final is a very special game. We all know that. Going into it, it's a challenge like no other. And we've got a team ahead of us in Inter who's very experienced, who've been in the final recently with essentially the same squad. So they do have like that experience of this moment that maybe we don't have as much. I would, you know, not entirely like make that point as well, because we do have a lot of player and definitely like a skeleton of the team who have this level of experience. I'm thinking of a Dembele who went on to a World Cup final with France. Hakimi took Morocco into the semi-finals of the World Cup as well, and definitely like went far into the African Nations League, Nations Cup. Players like Marquinhos again, like he's been playing for Brazil forever. He went to the final with PSG during COVID. Donnarumma took Italy into a Euro like final and was the best player in the Euro for Italy. So we do have, a lot of players who now are at this stage of having been in those big games, having seen what it's like to compete. We've got Lucas Hernandez as well of the pitch, who's both won the Champions League with Bayern Munich against PSG and also been part of the French squad in the recent World Cups. So we do have, that strength going in, and that should definitely help us. The mental resilience one is the old PSG demon. We've seen it a little bit against Aston Villa. When the goings get tough, when the game get a little bit crazy, how does that team respond? Are they able to really handle the pressure when the pressure is piling? I think for me, I would say ultimately what I took from Aston Villa is that we actually did well. We were challenged for sure. The opposing team tried to make the game go crazy. The opposing fans were there. We were away from home. And at the same time, we didn't crumble. We kept our advantage. We kept our head. We gathered back, got hold of the ball, and just went through it. And I think as well, the road that we had to that final, that difficult start of the season, turning points against City when we were basically out, and then being able to turn things around against Liverpool, winning Anfield, that's a lot of big moments which are defining in terms of experience and in terms of player progression. And so hopefully that, mitigates that difficulty that we might have. Okay, moving on to key battlegrounds and the places that we should be watching for this final. The first one I think is very straightforward, and I think I'm not the only one to say this, but to me it's going to be a war of fullbacks. Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, they've been a massive strength for us in this UCL run. And same thing for Inter. Dumfries, Di Marco, they've both been playing at amazing levels this season in the Champions League. Their games against Barcelona, both of them made such an impact. And I think, the question mark of which team is going to be able to project their fullbacks into opposing side and keep the opposing wingers back, it's going to be a big part of who dominates that game and who can take the advantage. I do think on principle, and I might be too much of a PSG supporter there, but I do think that Hakimi and Nuno are maybe a slightly better pair of fullbacks than Dumfries and Di Marco. But it's definitely going to be close, and it's definitely going to be a place to watch. The second one that I've got is really around beating Inter's first line of defense. So Inter is very unique in its tactical shape, playing a 3-5-2, so with two attackers up front. That's very unusual in today's football and not something that I think we've faced this season, at least definitely not at this level. Lautaro Martinez and Thuram, they can put a lot of pressure on our line of defense. Typically, when we have the ball this season, PSG, we keep three players at the back, Marquinhos, Pacho, and usually Nuno Mendes. Inter, to counter that, they also have a tendency to project one of their midfield forward to have a 3-against-3 pressing line. So it would be Lautaro Martinez, it would be Thuram, and it would be either Barella or Çalhanoğlu. That's going to be a tough one. 3-against-3. Obviously, it's one of the building principles of Luis Enrique is to build from the back through short passing, through controlling the ball. I think Vitinha is going to drop back to try to help with getting through that first line. I think Dembele jumping back also could help bring some numbers in midfield and allow for some passing lines. The space for Hakimi, the space for Kvara as well on the side, it's going to be a question mark. I think it's going to be a chess match there, and I think it's going to be so fascinating to watch. I do think, once again, we've got the players and we've got the skills technically and tactically to go through it, but one area to watch for sure. And finally, the last one I wanted to bring up in terms of key battleground is really around killer mentality up front. We've seen it in Inter's game against Barcelona. They do not need a lot of chances to score goals. When PSG, let's be honest, even in Dembele's peak phase in this season, it's not necessarily our strongest point. We do need to create chances to score goals. I'm hoping we can be very efficient there for this game, but it's definitely going to be one to watch because we don't want at the end of the day to, dominate the game, miss some chances, and then get hit on the counter and Inter like getting away with a 1-0 win. That would be literally a nightmare scenario. At the same time, if Inter does score first, we also do have the capacities to get back into the game and score more goals than them. So I think um, everyone has been talking about Dembele as a possible Golden Ball winner, and the amount of goals that he scored. He's not done so well in recent games. I think he's saving it for the big one. I do think we have the weapons up front to be able to score goals, but yeah, our attackers are gonna need to be on it, and really convert the chances that they get. Okay, final part of it. We're getting to the thick of it. It's been a long one, so thanks so much if you're still with me right now. Let's talk about my prediction. I think that's what everyone wants to hear. All things considered, I'm a supporter. I definitely think PSG is going to win. I'm not going to say anything different. Um, very trying to be very objective as well. I do think PSG has the skills and the weapons and the ability to get through that Inter side. I do think we can create a lot of problems for them. Um, I very much respect them. I think they're going to be a very tough opponent. I think a final is a very unique game and a very unique moment in a lot of ways. So I do agree with what lots of commenters are saying, that it's 50-50, that it's a toss-up, that it could go either way. For sure it does, and for sure anything could happen. But at the end of the day, if I have to put my foot down and really call it out, I think PSG has what it takes, and I really do think we can get away with a win. And I'll go even further than that. Um, I've been looking at past finals, and the reality is that for the past nearly 10 years, like only one of the two teams in the final score. It's typically like always a very close game, sometimes very closed off as well. If you think of, Real Madrid versus Dortmund last year, Real Madrid was an outside favorite, and then like in the game it was definitely closer than that. Before that, Inter versus Man City as well. Everyone thought Man City was gonna walk past Inter, and in the end they only managed 1-0. It was a lot closer than most people expected. Even going back to our first UCL final, PSG against Bayern during COVID, I think like going into that, Bayern was definitely a favorite, and then like we did have our chances. We did have Neymar Smith, Mbappe Smith, I guess, and so like it ended up 1-0, and I think that was a lot closer than a lot of people were expecting. In this game, I really do think that we could get away with a wider win. I think like let's be real. 80, 70, 80% chances it's going to be a close game, it's going to be a tight 1-0, and we're going to be like grinding through it, and I'm going to end up the game with no nails left on my fingers. Um, but there's also a scenario where, like, looking at the past games of PSG this UCL season, we're used to starting games very strong. We've had like very good start of the games. We can like turn on the pressure from the get go. Think of the game in Anfield and the early goal against Arsenal as well. If we do that against Inter and we are in a position where like we're 1-0 up early in the game, yeah, it could really like go a bit wider. Inter would have to attack, would have to like create some space behind their line of defense, and then on the counter, like the players that we've got on the wings, the players that we have up front, it could be just a festival for them. So, I'm going to stick my foot out. I'm not going to be one of those guys who say, like, oh, it's going to be tight, it's going to be 1-0, it's going to be a penalty shootout. Definitely could be, don't get me wrong. But I also think, like, there's a good scenario where we end up with, like, a pretty commanding win, 3-1, 4-1. And I definitely see some players contributing into that. So I think Vara is going to have his moment. He's been like so close to scoring in previous rounds, and definitely deserves one. He also knows Inter. He was playing in Italy up until December. So he can be a very big importance in this game. Dembele, I think it's his moment. I want to see him win the golden ball. I think he's been like the man of the season. He's going to be important in dropping deep, helping the midfield, being the leader in attack, in starting the press. But I also want to see him get a chance and get into the scoring sheet. Hakimi, once again, if we think of a game where like we can project and Inter has to play high and create space in behind, Hakimi, for his speed, for his ability to run from one end to the pitch to another, could really end up getting on the scoreline as well. And then the last one, like more of me speaking from the heart, but I think Vitinha as well. He's going to have a big importance in bossing the midfield. If he can get through the Inter press, that's definitely going to be on him and find the lines of passing. He's going to be ruling this final. And I think like that's also going to make a big difference for us. He could also get on the scoreline. If Inter drops back deep, he's got a good shot from afar. We haven't really seen it that much this season, but if you remember the game against Barcelona last season, yeah, he did some stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes one or two chances and hope one of them gets through. So anyway, man, it's more than 20 minutes, I guess, at this point. Thanks so much if you're still there. Thanks for listening to me. Let me know in the comment what you think of all of this and what's your predictions for the game. We're less than 48 hours away. It's coming, guys. We're here. It's happening. So for now, like, let me know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to see all future videos. And also drop a like for this video if you're still there. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.